All right. Nice to see you, Anders and Arthur. Thanks for joining, everyone. My name is Amelia Henry. I'm an architect and enterprise manager here at Finch, and I'm joined here by Anders from Forma Autodesk, as well as Arthur, who's from Finch, and they, of course, will introduce themselves as well. Um, just a bit of background. We are really excited to say that we've had full capacity registered for the webinar. So we hit over 500 registrants. And this webinar will be recorded and we will send out the recording to everyone afterwards. And we will also have a Q&A session at the end. So as we're going, feel free to write your questions in the Q&A and we'll go through them at the end. All right. I'll go ahead and share my screen and we will jump into it. All right, so today we'll be going through the Forma to Finch to Revit workflow. And at the end, we'll also include some upcoming features and what we're currently working on Finch and here at Finch and will be launched shortly. So a bit of background about Finch. The idea of it is that it's a generative co-pilot. So the aim is that it's designed in collaboration with architects. We have a big team of architects here at Finch, the founders are architects as well. So everything is sort of designed with those architects in mind. We currently have two tiers. We have around 80,000 on our waiting list, which is very exciting, but unfortunately we can't open up to everyone all at once. So what we're doing in the meantime is what we call Finch Basic as well as Finch Enterprise. Finch Basic, we'll go into this a bit in the webinar. It's sort of a limited single user tier, has access to some of the generative features, but not all of them. In Finch Enterprise, this is a full access tier that's on the firm level. It's a one-year partnership. And with these firms, we work really closely with them in terms of building a custom data set for them to generate from. So when they're generating their plans, it's in their style, up to local regulations, these sort of things. And Arthur will sort of specify today what's sort of included in Basic and what's included in Enterprise as we go through. The Forma plugin that Anders will be going through is, of course, available to both Basic and Enterprise users. These two tiers, the Finch Basic tier starts at 49 euros per month, and this does include the key figures calculations, connection to existing integrations such as the Forma, Revit, Rhino, as well as generating apartment mixes and circulation. Finch Enterprise includes, of course, all of that, plus Teams access, multiple licenses, as well as the generate plan features, graph rules, and the custom data set. And as mentioned, Arthur will sort of go through this and specify what's included where. So the three sort of main values of Finch, first one is that you're generating plans in your style. So it's your regulations, your door widths, your wall widths, your furniture, and also your spatial hierarchy. So the way that you design and sort of the breadth of knowledge that your firm has built up over time is directly integrated into your results. So it's generating plans that are ready to use. But of course, we also do provide a full editing suite. So you always can go in and refine things, move things around, customize it as you are, of course, the architect and have full control over everything that's generated in Finch. We also, as a byproduct of creating this data set on the enterprise level, we build up a plan library. And a plan library is essentially a catalog of all of your firm's past residential projects. And these plans are quite smart. They have a lot of metadata attached to them. We work with quite complex tagging systems, local regulations in terms of constraints, minimum widths, these sort of things. So this actually allows architects to work a bit more independently in the residential sphere, as each plan sort of knows how it can be adapted and knows the potential and possibility for it to be sort of reintegrated into new projects. We also are bringing everything out into Revit as a full 3D BIM model, and we'll go through this today. But we are sort of working in this 2D view here in Finch. And when we bring it down into Revit, it's a full 3D model complete with model groups, custom families, all of the data hierarchy you create up in Finch is brought down seamlessly into Revit. So you can just continue into your construction documentation phases there. Here we have a case study with one of our French firms. They were able to design 220 apartments in 3 hours. So they came to us with a competition project due the next day. They'd already solved the mass in the floor plate, and in this project, they just want to kind of to jump in later stage and generate just the apartments. And they were able to do that in 3 hours. And of course, these are local apartments according to the local regulations in French with their French furniture. So this really allows them to quickly iterate and get all of this detail out in the late stage without having to do a lot of prepping. You have the data set ready to go, ready to be used. We also work quite closely with our firms in terms of integrating to their existing technology. So one of our firms, Link, they have a lot of internal digital development called Link.io, and we've been partnering with them for a few years now. And Honor Duvis, their head of digital, has said that with Finch, they can be more efficient, deliver projects faster, and with better precision. So the workflow here, we're just a few more slides before we jump into the live demo. But the workflow of Finch is that you always start off in an external software. So whether that is Rhino, Revit, Grasshopper, or Forma, as we'll be going through today, and you create the mass there. So the architect is creating the mass. Inside of Finch, we're working with the interior of the building. So this is what we call the massing studio, where you get out your programs, key figures, custom calculations, and then our two generative studios generate floor plate, where you're generating cores, corridors, unit mixes, as well as generate unit plan. And this is where you're generating those apartments, using your graph rules to check for regulations, these sort of things. And this feature is what's available in the enterprise tier. So this is not available on Finch Basic. Once you have worked through the building, then you can bring it out into Rhino, Revit, and Grasshopper to continue working in the later stages of the project. Supported typologies are multifamily residential. We do support everything sort of in the residential bubble, so that does include hotels, student housing, elder care, as well as the residential portions of master plans. You can always sort of customize and draw everything in Finch, so it is a full editing tool. So some firms are, generating the residential towers and then drawing the office towers, or just working on them later in Revit for those typologies that we don't support. And software is Rhino, Revit, Grasshopper, as well as Forma. All right, so now I'm going to hand it over to Anders, who's going to start off teaching us how to work in Forma.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. All right, so I am Anders, and I am a part of the Autodesk Forma team. I'm an architect working with customers across the globe, helping them to integrate Forma into their workflow and be more efficient, primarily in the early phase of design. We work in their phase where you use volume studies, analyze the results before going into the next phase. In this case, it will be Finch going inside of the building. So it's really exciting to explore this sort of combined workflow from going from Forma, Finch, and to Revit. What you see here on the screen is just the homepage of Forma within Autodesk. This is where you get access to the tool. So log on to autodesk.com and search for Forma, and you will be able to access your hub if you have a AEC collection, which means Revit and a bunch of other tools. If you don't have access to Forma already, you can start a free trial for 30 days. So I will access my hub and I will go in and create a new project. This is where I keep all my projects. This is where I share them, give access to other people. So for example, in this case, I have a members list of me, including me, Jesper, Cesar, and also Arthur. So let's move this one quick. I start by creating a new site. And in this case, I will search for it, or I will deep dive in straight into where I want to create my project. In this case, I will go to New York City and to Manhattan. And I will find a little park downtown to see if we can make it even more dense in this city. So I find my place and I get this confirm map button, which allows me to fetch information that is available in this specific region. This means parcels, property boundaries, buildings, contextual data, trees, etc. So depending on where you create your project, we fetch different data. So if you're creating one in France, you will get French data, typically from authorities or other providers like Esri. When we are in US, we get buildings from US structures, Esri topography, and parcels from ReadGrid. And you can see here that we have 1 meter resolution or better when it comes to terrain in US. So I will add a couple of layers, which I choose to do the starter pack, which includes roads and buildings. Order them, and it will populate the scene for me. Once done, I will come into this area here where I get the whole scene set up. This takes a couple, perhaps 30 seconds to 3 minutes, depending on your internet connection maybe. And this is where I start exploring my project. So I got the 3D environment, which is for me quite significant. As an architect, I spend hours just finding this information and creating the surrounding topography, buildings, etc., and combining them. Now we get that automated directly inside of Forma. So when I start designing, I typically go into what we call Forma board, which is a place for me to explore this project, where I can put notes and where I can include and add people in to collaborate with me. So for example, in this case, I have Arthur joining me, who will take over this project using Finch going forward. So we get a brief here with a couple of figures that we need to follow, some qualities that we need to fulfill, for example. What I do then is that I simply look into the 2D plan here and I add a couple of analyses for me to explore. For example, I choose the sunlight, and I can also, as Arthur is also in this team, he can also join me and co-create with me. So you can see how we combine our forces here and do this together. And I think this is a great way to demonstrate also not only being able to collaborate live here on this board, but this is also how we do this, the whole workflow. We are sitting across the globe, working collaboratively together in the cloud, sending information from Forma to Finch to Revit, etc. But we can also together here explore this site initially. So we have a common understanding of what's going on and what's coming. So I do this, I do a top 2D view, and I can also start and do some sketches here. Maybe I outline some directions that I want to explore, do something like a little bit of an arrow here. And this is where I like to have my little piazza. And then I can also look into, for example, the sun hours here and see sort of how I should formulate this proposal going forward. So going back to the design, tab, it's time for me to start doing something here, designing something. Going to 2D mode. And I choose the simplest tool that we have, which is line building. And I just create a L-shaped building like this. And I give it a little bit more width and a little bit more height. Just like that. If I'm happy, I can just start to analyze this to see how this particular sort of shape interacts with the different sustainability parameters at this site. You can also choose to use the AI wind AI tool, which gives me an instant response to the wind situation here. So for example, if I pull this here, it automatically would re-trigger the wind analysis and give me feedback directly. If I push this, run detail analysis, it will give me a full open foam wind analysis. So fluid dynamics, for the detailed wind and AI driven for the really, really fast one. What I can do now is that I can save this and I can duplicate it. So I can continue working with another iteration. For example, I will just pull this down here, slice this, go up here a little bit and create a little bit another different types of shape. And you can see that the wind analysis is always thinking behind, so I can get instant response on what I'm doing. Can also go in and make a little bit of more of a curvy shapes, for example, to take this one here and then go into make some sort of a little bit of a curve here on this side here. Give it a little bit more of a round shape. And this is my second proposal before going into duplicating this again to create a third one. So in a couple of minutes, I can create multiple of different proposals for this site. Now I'm doing this quite fast, but it's for us to explore the different possibilities that we have and different what different shape means. So when I have a list of different proposals, I can go in and check them out. I've already created a couple of them on beforehand. So for example, I've done this is we started with, and another one which has the little bit more towered shape, and the one that I might be more comfortable with since I've been working with this for a while. So why did I pick this one, this particular shape? I mean, we have a lot of different analysis here. We have microclimate, wind, daylight, solar energy. We also have embodied carbon, for example. But if I go into compare, and I can compare this different proposals side by side. For example, here I have the sun analysis, and we can see that this was the little bit of tower shaped, and the L shaped, and then the sort of the third one here. We can easily compare and see which one of these meets my requirement, because we in the beginning we talked about the brief, which gives me some sort of regulations and guidance in why and how I should create the buildings in the way I do. So if I'm happy with the right-hand side ones, I can also go in and look into this specific proposal side by side with all the different analysis that we have. So now I have 4 different analyses on the same proposal. Going back to the board again, this is what I typically do, that I summarize my project in the board, highlighting them in a scene like this, so I can have them linked and synced accordingly. So I have all my figures here that I can compare, for example, the GFA, etc. But I can also go in and also link all my different analysis. And in this case, for example, I have the daylight, which then gives me the possibility to see, for example, how does it affect this area to place a building in this particular place. So this is a quite nice way to demonstrate the impact a building has for the urban environment. All right, so I will go back to the first design scene here, and I will ship this to Finch. So this is where I go into my extensions tab. I will add the extension. Here you'll find all our extensions. You will be able to download the Revit add-in and also the Rhino add-in. So if you prefer to design in Rhino, you can do that. We have a bi-directional link to Rhino. What we're going to see later here is the link to Revit as well. But now we're going to send this to Finch. So I open this up and I simply choose where this project should land. And I click export to Finch. So in a minute or so, Arthur will receive a notification that this particular project with the surroundings has been shipped to Finch. if you like to have more information about this particular extension, you can go in here and see the FAQ for Finch extension. So with that, I will leave the scene over to Arthur.
Thank you very much, Anders, for a very, very good walkthrough of Forma. I'm just sharing my screen here. There we are. Yes, there we go. So we will get to your shape in just a moment, but first and foremost, I would like to show you our plan library. So that's something that Amelia touched on as well in the beginning, right? So when you're going to be generating the apartment layouts in your model in Finch, we will be pulling results from 3 different places. One of them will be your organization's data set or library, which you see here. So ours is called Acme Architects, and it has 185 plans. So it'll be one of the places. The other one will be also your private library. And then the third one will be our Finch AI generated plans. I want to show you what one of these plans looks like, right? So the idea with Finch is that you are able to create a set of plans, maybe from previous projects that you've had, or just plans that you want to draw up yourself. And we want to make them flexible, and we want to make them applicable for dozens and dozens more new scenarios where these plans could be. And so a plan could look something like this, right? So this is the level of detail that you can kind of expect. And as you will notice, as I'm kind of progressing through my demo as well, everything is also editable. So I could, for example, go ahead and change this door to a sliding door. Can make sure that it's actually kind of coming into the wall this way. I can change this to, let's say, folding doors like so. And of course, I can also draw walls wherever I want them to. And I can kind of move them either by dragging them like this, or of course also, for those of you that are coming from Revit, you'll be very familiar with this step, defining a distance from an existing wall or another object inside of your plan. So you're always able to iterate on your plans. You can save several copies and sort of grow your personal library in this sense. The other great thing is, of course, like I mentioned, that our idea is that these plans are able to be put into several different scenarios. They're able to kind of flex and move and kind of fill out other shapes, right? And so every one of these plans that I showed you are going to be, to some extent at least, flexible, right? So they can move in whatever direction and kind of fill out whatever shape it is that we kind of put them into. But as you know, when you work with plans, it's very seldom that free, right? Quite often we have constraints to worry about. Quite often we have different set of rules to kind of follow. And to help our users follow those rules, we also have this function of constraints. So what we're able to do is we're able to lock certain distances for certain spaces to make sure that they don't really move that much when this plan changes shapes, when it changes appearances or stretches, and however, and in whichever way. And so what I'm doing now is I'm locking our bedroom, and I've also locked the kind of width of this hallway. I also want to make sure that these 2 bedrooms we have up here will not shrink past this particular size, but if we were to kind of move this plan around, they would then be allowed to grow. And so if I am pulling this plan now, you can see that, of course, my bathroom, my hallway stay the same. And if I'm extending upward, then my bedrooms can also extend together with the unit, but they will never shrink past that size that we kind of locked in that sense. And so this is essentially the settings that you have in all of these plans, both in your library and in your company's data set. Again, going back to the initial slides, this kind of company data set is something for enterprise customers. And if you're a basic customer, you will have your own kind of solo library that you can fill in with these plans on your own. With that said, I think it's time to head over to the model that Anders sent over to me. And so here it is in just a different tab. So this is now inside of Finch. And you see that the model has been sent over with all of the context around it and all of the kind of useful things that can help us when we start looking at the layout. So I want to get into this floor to start understanding it a little bit better and starting to create a layout for this particular shape. What I'm going to go for is a typology of a double loaded corridor. So I'm going to have apartments on each side of this very long corridor. And what you see on the screen now is our optimization algorithm that is trying to understand where to place the points of circulation or the cores, and how does that relate to the egress distances that we can set here on the left-hand side. So I'm going to change our egress distances. Of course, you're all familiar with those. They have to do with fire regulations quite often and other things like accessibility. And so now I have a single distance set to 15 meters and distance to multiple points set to 30 meters. You can see that on the screen. So the gray nodes are showing the multiple egress point distances, and the green ones are showing single ones. I think this is a decent result, but I know that my volume has a protruding part that is kind of here centrally. So what I would essentially want is to have at least 3 cores, maybe even 4 if the need is for a 4th one. But I want this one to be a sort of central one that is going to help me kind of get people up as I protrude this building further, right? So we can do something like this. Another thing I can do is also I can set these little stairwell attractors on the inside of the facade, because I want all of my circulation points or all of my cores to be facing one way. You can probably already see that that will help me with the layout, especially on the kind of exterior of this building. As this algorithm is kind of also processing this, we can of course also apply a couple of these weights. So weights essentially help us, and the algorithm primarily, to prioritize what it is that it should be creating in this floor itself. You can also, of course, look at dimensions, so things like wall widths, how big should these kind of starting shapes for circulation be in terms of width and depth, and also how wide your corridor should be. I am quite happy with this layout, so I'm going to bake it out. But one thing I want to do is to just modify this point of circulation a little bit. Just switch on program so we can see what's what. Because again, I want this to kind of have several lifts, maybe even kind of a couple of escape stairs and shafts and things like that, right? So what I want to do is I want to drag this wall to kind of maybe here, and then I want to make sure that it's at least, let's say, 4.2 meters in width. Of course, we can also work with imperial units, by the way. This project, of course, is in millimeters, but if you are in a place where you work with imperial, that is also perfectly fine. Great. So now I have my layout. I have the kind of beginnings of what this building is going to look like. And what I can do now is I can select an area of this building, and I can start generating a unit mix around that part of the building. So the reason I do this in 2 steps, and you can do this in 1, is of course because I want to have a different unit mix on the inner side. I think the width that we have here kind of offers itself to smaller apartments. But on the outside, I want this unit mix. And of course, I can modify it here on the top left. So I have a third each now of kind of smaller apartments, medium apartments, and larger. We can add more if we want to. We can once again tell this algorithm to prioritize different things. So things like adjacency. So should similar flats be placed close to each other, etc. I am quite happy with this layout. So I have a couple of large units kind of on the edges, or at least with quite a bit of facade. And then, of course, I have my small ones here and my medium ones up here. So I'll bake these out because I am quite happy with this layout. But if I did want to modify anything, if I wanted to change, for example, the relationship between these 2 units, I could, of course, select the wall, and I can say that really all I need for this one is just 12 meters. So this bottom one can get a little bit more space when we're working with it like this. And now is really the time to kind of start looking at apartment layouts. Of course, I could have done this side as well, but just with respect to time and this webinar, I think I'm going to stick to the outside. We can start looking at apartment layouts. Perhaps before we do that, I can also go to our graph rules just here, and I can set a couple of more rules for when we start generating these layouts, right? So with our graph rules, I'm able to, for example, say that my bedrooms should not be under 10 square meters. And let's say our bathrooms should not be under 2.5 square meters in size. As well as these two parameters that I've set, graph rules will also look at kind of collision detection, which you'll understand a little bit more in just a second, but it will also look at sort of weird angles or if I have any unconnected walls, etc. So not only is it looking at this kind of layout as a graph and relationships between the different spaces, but it's also essentially like a spell check for when you go ahead and generate layouts. I think I'm going to start with this corner apartment. Actually, before I do that, it's worth mentioning that up until this point is essentially what you get with Finch Basic. All of the generative functions after this are essentially part of our enterprise package. If you are a basic user, what you will have access to is your library. So you'll be able to paste plans from your library by scanning it. And you can also scan the current variant for plans. And you have access to this sort of smart copy paste function. Because of course I have an enterprise level access, I can go ahead and generate a layout in this corner apartment. And like I said before, we are pulling information from 3 different places. So we're looking at plans from my own library. So I have test 6 here that can kind of fit in quite nicely into this space. I also have a heap of results from my company's data set, in this case, Acme Architects. And if I don't like any of these, or if I just want something else, maybe my data sets don't exactly include what I'm looking for, I can also rely on the Finch generated plans that you see just kind of filling up continuously at the very bottom. We rank all of the plans, all of these results. So the plan I have in my own library is a 95% match, and you can look at more about this in terms of adaptivity, compliance, daylight, and then the total score. That's what we base it off of. And also this plan from Acme Architects has a very, well, identical rating. I think I'm going to go for this one, but just to kind of show you what else we have to choose from, I think these plans also look quite interesting, especially this one, because it has sort of 2 bedrooms separated by a central social space. I think that's quite interesting. And just to compare it to my own, in fact, I think I'll go with this one. So I can go ahead and assign this to unit. And here we can just sort of leave it and be happy with the way that things are looking, or we can start modifying things manually. So just as we were able to do it with the unit walls, we can of course also do it inside of this plan. So I really want to kind of align these 2 walls, and I want to make sure that this is an accessible hallway. So what I want to do is to make sure that this wall is out here. And then to avoid that corner, we can also just kind of grab this. And if you want to make sure that it's very clear just at a glance that this is indeed an accessible hallway, we can of course place one of these circles, which I grabbed from our furniture menu here. In the same way, we can kind of go through and change some furniture around, move these things, explore different iterations of this particular plan. Or again, we can just leave this as it is. And another thing that I can do here is, of course, also to just grab one of these units and see what layouts are possible here. So it seems like I don't have anything that's suitable in my own library. So the results I'm getting are from Acme, but that is not a bad thing because here I have a result that is 100% compliant to this particular unit. So I'll go ahead and assign it to this unit. And then we have this neat function where I can go ahead and select this layout, copy it. I can go to my unique units tab and I can select all of the units that are the same size and the same dimensions. And I can simply paste the same layout into all of them. And so this way, sorry about that. And so this way we're able to kind of work our way through the plan, modify things manually, use the generative functions that Finch offers to fill out places where they need to be kind of filled out. We don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. And we can kind of iterate this whole building in this process, right? So here I have one standard floor. I think I have another one here, and then finally these kind of top ones. So we really only have to do this maybe at most 3 times, right? And when we have more elaborate buildings, so I've just switched over to a different variant, you can also look at a lot of these things in 3D and get a lot of insights from this. So for example, here I have my unique units tab open, and I can start looking at, okay, so one of my largest units are 92 square meters, and they're all put into this corner where they have triple aspect, which I think is a really good thing, especially if you're talking to a client and you're trying to understand the logic between or behind why a particular unit is in a particular location. You can also start looking at where you have the plans. So if you're familiar with, what Resi 3 looks like, you know that it is exactly there, and you know what it's going to essentially mean when you progress in stages with this project. And so when you are at this stage, when you have this much information from Forma into Finch, you are able to then push it over to Revit. And Amelia is going to cover it in a lot more detail, but I just want to give you sort of a preview of what this model looks like when we're there. I think you still see my screen, right, with Revit?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, great. And so this is the sort of raw export out into Revit, right? So everything is come out as families. So exterior walls of families, interior walls of families. You can look at this in plan. So all of these layouts have the same names. We also, of course, export this and generate sheets for you to kind of print on. Door schedules, everybody loves those. We can generate those too. And of course, we can also look at area plans. So both kind of gross plans and of course also rentable area plans. I'm going to stop there and hand the word over to you, Amelia.
Great. Thanks, Arthur. It's really nice to see the workflow running through in a building from scratch, pretty much to ready to bring down into construction. All right, I'll go ahead and share my screen again. All right, there we are. So here we have a completed Finch project. This is another style of project from what we've seen so far. And this is a completed project. So we have the high rise. And in this type of building, Finch doesn't necessarily generate the actual central core for high rises. So with this workflow is what I did is uploaded the mass, but I also uploaded the core as well. So you can kind of jump into Finch at multiple stages of the project. If you already have a core for the building, just send that up, generate around it. If you already have the floor plate unit mix solved and you just want to generate apartments, you can also just send that up via Revit and then generate in. So this is a sort of a later stage project that we came into Finch with an established core and then generated the unit mix around it. But here we have this completed project. So we of course have our key figures over on the left, and then in our data drawers, we can get this really nice breakdown. And of course, when we have a high rise like this, we start to see a lot of vertical stacking, of course, a lot of reusing of the same units. And so then it's really important that our data is really structured, that we can understand sort of where all of these apartments are laid out throughout the building and just get a really nice diagram to work with. So over here on the right, we can of course hover over, see our Resi programs, office, circulation, restaurant, etc. Space types as well. So our great rooms, bedrooms, hallways, single beds, all of that is good to go there. Unit mix, same here. And then in the plans, we have quite a nice structure laid out here. And this is something that we also create in the data set. So these are actually just brought in directly from the data set. So when I generate, I have this nice structure. So I already know if the plan is a type A, type B accessibility. I also know a bit about the capacity. Is it a 2-bed, 3-person, 2-bed, 4-person? These types of details are just easily accessible here. And I can get this really nice overview as well and see sort of where all of these are laid out. And we actually see that some of our firms present directly to their clients in this view, as it's a really interactive diagram. And you go in, make a change, you can really quickly see how, if you want to knock down a wall here, how does that affect the unit mix? How does that affect the amount of type A units? These sort of things, you can get that instant feedback. So here, if we jump down into 2D, we have a nice core here. This is uploaded via Revit. And then of course, everything else that you see is generated around here. And within these groups, we have quite a lot. We have 57 units in this model group, 29 here. So it's a lot to bring down into Revit. So if I just jump over to Revit here we have the mass brought down. So we'll zoom in here and we can see that we get this sort of 3D model. And of course, within that, we are working with these model groups. So we have that interior model group. And then within that, we of course are getting the doors, all of that. We are bringing in the furniture as 2D. So that's coming in, of course, with that naming structure that we set up in Finch. But at this point, it's just a matter of sort of selecting all instances of a specific type and then converting to your own templates after that. And you can always download Finch into your existing templates, into your custom template files. So if we just enter this model group here, within that, we can see that we have this Finch basic unit wall 120 millimeter. And then of course, this thickness is going to be set according to your data set. So this way we can have quite a nice hierarchy. You know, your bathroom walls can be thicker, balcony walls, these sort of things. So it's quite quick to just select all instances and convert from here. Arthur touched on this a bit as well, that we are, of course, bringing in a lot of data in here. So we do have, of course, all of these room tags, area plans, all of this here. We can create some nice sheets if we just check view sheets when we're downloading. Same goes for our schedules. Let me just jump out of this. We get these nice schedules. And of course, because we have this structure of all of the plans and everything already in Finch, when we bring it down, it's a single click and this schedule is ready to go with the totals for all of our apartments here. We also have the area plans, so rentable, gross plans, all of that is of course brought down and you can create schedules for those. In terms of actually downloading this, it's quite a quick process. It's a 3-click process actually. So pretty much you're just going to open up your Finch add-in. You'll see it pop up here on the right side. And then it's just a matter of picking your project, picking your variant under the BIM tab, choosing if you want to import furniture, and then hitting download BIM. And of course, we are doing a conversion from sort of our Finch geometry into native Revit file BIM model. So this does take a couple of minutes. Usually I would say 3 to 5 minutes, but of course it's a bit heavier, it can take a bit longer. So we just recommend, go grab a coffee, let it download, and then you have this, this sort of BIM model in Revit. One thing that we will be sort of launching, it's kind of a first beta version is out right now, is actually being able to generate directly here in Revit. So this will be coming out, stay tuned for that. But this will allow, if you have later stage changes where you just want to, regenerate in a unit from your existing data set, that will actually be possible to do down here in Revit. All right. If we also head over to Rhino, I've downloaded the same tower here as well. So this is the Rhino. We haven't touched too much on Rhino, but it's a quick export here. We have this live link. So everything that we do sort of in Finch is getting synced live here, but I've actually exploded out some geometry here and actually downloaded it into the file so you can see what you get. In terms of a 3D export, you're getting, of course, these groups for polysurfaces, slabs, things like that. So you have this sort of structure and you can run simulations on it here directly in Rhino. And then we also have some sheets here coming down into Finch, into Rhino here with all of the data. We can take a look here, turn some stuff on, and then we can continue to work there. And this can be a nice way to print these out pretty quickly and get some feedback on them pretty quickly. All right. Next thing I'll go ahead and show is how to work in a more organic shape, and also how we work with similar plans that we want to treat as a model group, but maybe aren't perfectly identical. So if I jump over into this unit, here I have a very organic shape. So I'll just really quickly generate a nice little unit mix around this building, fire that up, say we're happy with this. And then down here in the bottom, I have 2 units. They're kind of similar in shape and I want them to share a unit. So if I just go ahead and generate here, get some results. And here we actually are running a sort of simplification algorithm. So I can always turn on my bounds and my graph to kind of see what's actually happening behind the scenes. And we see that when Finch looks at this unit, it's really treating it almost as if it's sort of just a rectangle. And that's why we can get so many results for it. But then Finch is auto extending and sort of making these transformations to allow it to be a bit more organic here. We see that the entrance is along this upper wall. So we have this sort of red entrance wall, and then we actually have daylight access here. So this also works if you have, corner units and one side doesn't admit daylight, you can just toggle it off. In this case, we have a faceted unit. So we have sort of a lot of daylight points that we can turn on and off so we get even more control. But in this case, let's just go ahead and take this unit, assign it out. And now let's say that I want to use it here. So it's similar. We want sort of the same base, but just, of course, we want it to fit into this unique shape here. So first thing I do is just Control C, Control V. So your typical copy paste, I'll just align that right there. And then if we jump in the unit, we see that it's actually sort of maintained that structure there. So first thing that I will do is just fit bounds, which is basically kind of exploding that plan to fit this unit. And then it's just a matter of some real minor changes here. Let's just take this back as living. And now we actually have a linked plan group. So this plan is used in 2 units. They're completely different shapes, but we do have this sort of central apartment core that is shared among them. So, if we go ahead and move this like that, save it, then we see we've committed that to this instance as well. So this can be a really nice way to manage a lot of similar but not identical apartments simultaneously and still sort of maintain these linked apartments inside of Finch. All right, so next we'll jump back into our presentation here. And the next thing we're going to take a look at is what is coming up. So we have some exciting updates coming up here. Next month, we are going to launch our AI Copilot. So essentially, we're going to bring AI not only to the plan generation, but also to our editing tools. So Finch will increasingly over time become better at predicting your next move. So here we kind of see that Finch is suggesting a door, suggesting a bed. It's making some intelligent assumptions about what you want to create here. We've already seen this kind of technology in developer tools such as Cursor. So now Finch is going to bring this to AEC with our AI Copilot. So stay tuned for this, launching next month. We also have some more exciting things to come. In Q4, we're planning on launching our building editor. So we hear a lot that those of you who aren't Rhino Revit or Forma users want to find another way into Finch. So by enabling users to actually start directly in Finch and create their masses there, we're opening up to those users who aren't in one of those softwares and also making it a bit easier for some of our existing users to start in Finch as well. All right. So if you want to join your industry peers, feel free to take a look at Finch Basic today. This is available for 49 euros a month, and this has all of our editing tools as well as our floor plate generation. And if you want to go one step further and take a look at Finch Enterprise to generate floor plans with AI, we'll send some info out about how to get access to that, but also feel free to reach out to us afterwards. We are a bit limited in the amount of firms that we can onboard. We can only onboard 6 per month in order to be able to sort of maintain the close relationship and build the data sets for each of those firms. So be sure to reach out to us and we can try to bump you up on the wait list and see what we can do when we can fit you in. All right. I think that's what we have for you today. So just a bit of repetition. Anders started off in Forma, showing the capabilities there, working with the masses, the simulations, and then sent it over to Arthur, who was generating the corridors, the unit mix, as well as the apartments, and then bringing it out into Revit and working further there. All right. So next thing that we have on the docket is a poll here. So I'm just going to go ahead and launch our poll. Give me 1 second. And it would be great if you guys could just fill out a few questions here. I think you should see it now, just about the types of projects you guys are normally working with, if you have any current residential projects, and also what you think of Finch now, how it can fit into your existing workflows, these sort of things. All right. I think we're ready for the Q&A then.
Yes, we are. And I have been hard at work trying to answer some of these questions in writing because we are getting a lot. And considering the time, I think we're going to have to be quite selective with what we go for. We will try to answer as many as possible. But perhaps we can start from the beginning. Is it possible to use Finch natively on Forma for the whole generation of the floor plans options? So manual means sort of without jumping to the Finch website.
Currently, all of the generative tools are available inside of Finch. So everything to do with the interior is going to be in Finch. For Forma, that's where you can run the simulations analysis, these sort of things there, and create the exterior mass.
Thank you. And will we potentially have any ArchiCAD support in the future?
This is something that is on the long-term roadmap. We don't have any dates for it. What will come out before that is this building editor that will allow you to start directly inside of Finch and kind of begin with the mass there.
Thank you. And Manuel is wondering if in our data sets we can kind of bake in compliances, for example, in his case, the building regulations of the Netherlands. So can you talk about how that works for us?
Yeah, so when we partner with a firm, the biggest focus immediately is building up a custom data set. And this is based off of your past residential projects. So if your past residential projects are in the Netherlands, then the plans that we sort of extract to build your data set will all adhere to that local code. And we can also create a few different sort of sub data sets for different countries and things like that. But in general, we also will ask for some standard local regulations such as space widths, these types of things. So your data set is really the core of all of this intelligence, that it's your past projects with your local regulations. So when you're generating, the plans are already sort of adhering to those. And then you have those graph rules on top of it just to check that everything is as expected. But this sort of intelligence and regulations actually built into the data set before we even generate with them.
Thank you. Great. And a bit about the typologies that we support as well. What about support for sort of townhomes or lofts and things like this?
So we currently support single-story apartments. Long-term roadmap, we definitely are looking at townhomes and these sort of things. But what is released right now is single-story, and we don't have any sort of dates for when we will support multi-story apartments.
Great. And if somebody is a teacher and wants to expose their students to Finch, what's the best way for them to move forward?
When you sign up to Finch Basic, you automatically get a 14-day trial. We don't currently have any educational licenses, perhaps something in the future that we will offer, but right now it would be via this 14-day trial of Finch Basic.
And when we work with the unit mix, is it possible to add constraints in terms of minimum facade lengths?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a constraints tab that has sort of harder requirements and values that you can input. So one of those is minimum facade width for units. One of those is entrance width needed. We also have minimum dual aspect, these sort of things. So we do have these harder local regulations that you could input for Finch.
That's right. And you can find them on the bottom left of the kind of panel with the different parameters that you're inputting. The next question is, does Finch generative design take into account the local building codes? Amelia, I think you sort of covered it. It's part in your library, part through graph rules and things like that. The next one is, once a layout has been baked, can this be changed to run another scenario again?
So right now, when you bake a layout, I assume this is about the floor plates. You can always, delete some walls if you like some of the walls that were generated and sort of generate around existing structure. You can also delete the whole thing and generate again. On the unit plan side, the apartment plan side, we aren't able to generate around specific rooms right now. This is something that we're working on. But if you, bake out a unit, you can always delete it, clear it out, regenerate in it. So there's no sort of limit on that.
Great. Here's an interesting one. So what data has been used to train Finch's model, and is the data uploaded by clients used for future training?
So we have a Finch data set that is created based on open source data sets. So this is what we use for a lot of our training and things like that. The client data sets are something that are completely separate. These are private to the client. No one else can see them. So it's just the firm and basically everyone who works there who can see that. And then they are essentially generating with their data from that. But in general, we're running everything, testing on our Finch data sets, and then the client data sets are just private to them.
Thank you. Let's see, what's another one? Yeah, more questions about ArchiCAD. Some people are saying that Finch is really fast, which is great. We've covered the duplexes. Let's see more about, what about, are we going to focus on any other typologies? So things like offices or commercial spaces?
Right now, our main focus is residential. This is what we're looking at and what is ready to go. We do have a few other typologies on our roadmap. We are running some tests in other typologies with some of our existing enterprise customers, but what's released is residential, and this is sort of the main focus that's sort of guiding all of our development.
Thank you. Quick one. Is the furniture library customizable?
Yeah, so on Finch Enterprise, it's a completely custom furniture library. So it's, the firm's own furniture with their accessibility bands. This is another way we kind of input those local accessibility regulations. So that's entirely customizable. On Finch Basic, you don't have a customizable furniture library, but you do have access to a Finch public library that has a lot of objects and things inside of it that you can furnish with.
Very good. Thank you. I am trying to find a Forma related question as well, Anders, so you can say something if you want to. If you want to bring anything up that you've sort of replied behind the scenes, feel free to. Otherwise, I can line up another question for Amelia.
Yeah, I tried to answer them all in the Q&A by writing intensively.
Okay, yeah, very good. I did think you looked very focused. Okay, for you then, Amelia, when you copy paste the unit, can you mirror the unit so that they can share a wet wall or I guess like a set of risers?
Yeah, absolutely. So the mirror tool is kind of separate from the editing tools because you can still maintain that linked group between them. So yeah, you can always mirror and change the orientation of apartments while still maintaining their connection.
Okay, very good. And then I think we're getting quite a lot of questions about licensing, etc. So for these questions, especially for enterprise ones, I would recommend that you reach out to to us at sales. So that's me and Amelia, and we can kind of take them on that basis. I think we've covered most of these. There's a lot of kind of repetitive questions here today. Let's see.
I actually see here one from
Yeah.
Yash. Thanks for joining,
Yes.
Yash. And he's asking about parking and grids and things like that. And I don't think we went too much into it, but you can upload structural grids from Revit, and then Finch will respect these while generating. So this is the way that we look at any sort of structural systems as well as parking requirements, these sort of things. So that's just via grids that we're working with.
And to kind of segue onto a similar question from Graham, he's asking if, so to work with existing structures, can you give fixed constraints like grid lines into the model? And like you answered me that yes, you can work with grid lines. Another nice thing is that you can upload existing circulation as well and existing walls if you're working from Rhino and from Revit. So that can also help you kind of repopulate existing structures. Okay, we have a couple more just jumping in. Maybe we have time with just one more. I know we're on the top of the hour, but let's see. So once you load it to Revit, can you still go back to Finch and do editing and vice versa? Sorry, Amelia, you muted.
Thanks. So your project remains inside of Finch, so you can always go back and regenerate, especially if it's big changes. I would suggest that you go back into Finch and rework with the new numbers and the new requirements. But if it is smaller changes, like I mentioned, we are sort of soon launching generating in Revit with just the apartment plan, so that could be an option for sort of later stage changes.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we have to stop here. Yeah.
Great. Thank you everyone for joining, and feel free to reach out to us if you have any further questions. We will try to answer all the Q&A and also send it out in email since we didn't have time to go through it all, but we'll send out the recording and further information about how to get access to Enterprise as well. All right. Thanks everyone. Have a great night, and I'll see you all soon.
Bye everyone, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.